Welcome to the Taos Education and Career Center's College and Career Readiness Social Studies class for fall of 2017. We will be looking at social studies through the lens of rural small town West in the United States. And the book we will be reading is called Rethinking Rural, Global Community and Economic Development in Small Town West by Don E. Albright. So by the end of this video, you should be able to define the word social, define the word resource, be able to examine what causes conflict over resources, express what it takes to resolve conflict over resources, articulate or express or be able to tell us what we're going to be studying in this class called social studies, and also know a few study tips. So the first thing we want to ask ourselves in a social studies class are, what are social studies? So if I type it into Google, it gave me various definitions. The first one, relating to society or its organization, like alcoholism, is recognized as a major social problem in our town. 2 is relating to rank or status. So a recent analysis or a recent study of social class in Britain. So that's your rank or your status in society. 3 was needing companionship and therefore best suited to living in communities. We are social beings as well as individuals, and everyone is probably more social or less social than the person next to them. It's very unique. The last one, it says relating to or designed for activities in which people meet each other for pleasure. He led a full social life. So there's this idea of socialness bringing us pleasure or happiness or joy. So in this definition, we had society, our status or our rank, socially, where we're ranked, our companionship, if we have companionship in our life, have somebody to hang out with or somebody to spend our time with, if we have pleasure or happiness in our life. So do these things matter? Social studies is really looking at these types of things and deciding, do they matter? Why or why not? And it's also the things that allow us to get by in life. So how do we survive our life? What are our resources for survival? So this course is going to look at these things around society, status, rank, companionship, pleasure, happiness, and very much around what are the resources that we have in order to navigate these parts of being social. So if we're looking at resources, I want to take a moment to really understand what that word means. So this time I looked at Merriam-Webster dictionary, and it gave us several definitions. So a source of supply or support. So a source of support, a source of wealth or revenue. And there it says a natural source of wealth or revenue, like we struck gold. A natural feature or phenomenon that enhances the quality of life, like we hike up to the waterfall and it makes us feel sane. So that would be a resource. Computable wealth. So wealth that you can add up, that'd be like money. I have $1, now I have $50, and that helps us get by in life. A source of information or expertise. So here we think about education. So a big part of education, the whole point is to have information and expertise so that we can make wise decisions for ourselves. The next one is a possibility of relief or recovery. So I like that. So one resource we have when we're feeling like we can't really get by in life is that we feel like it's possible to get some relief, or it's possible to recover from whatever is ailing us. And so that's a resource, that possibility, that belief. Number 3 says a means of spending one's leisure time. So this idea that even having free time to do what we want is a resource that helps us get by. And the fourth one, also very important, is an ability to meet or handle a situation. So if we think again about social studies and social interaction, it's a great resource or support to us to know that we can handle any situation, and we can gain a lot of confidence and happiness and joy from having that confidence that we can handle ourselves. So if we look at what makes up our society, it's really about resources, these kind of resources. So we have nature-made resources like the environment, the landscape, natural resources, and we talked about going to the woods or the waterfall or striking gold, right? Those are all natural-made resources that can support our society. Then we have people, human beings, we have all of our animals, our wildlife, and then I have art in here because a bird makes a beautiful nest, and that's sort of also a natural resource or phenomena that can create happiness or pleasure for us when we see that beautiful bird's nest. Then we have human-made resources, so our buildings, our homes where we live, the machines we use, our schools, our education, our access to information is a great resource. Our health and healing, however we access health and healing in our lives. Here again, we have our rank or status. What is our power in our life? What kind of status do we have with ourselves and with others? Money. Again, art. We have human-made art is a resource, and our religion or our spirituality can also be a resource that helps us get by. And in the big blue box, we look at this word access. So again, I looked at Merriam-Webster Dictionary, and it said the freedom or ability to obtain or make use of something. So when we can access resources, when we have access to money, it helps us pay our bills. When we have access to a home, it helps us feel safe and secure that we have a place to live. When we have access to education, we get access to information, it makes us more powerful. When we have access to health or access to practice our own religion or access to the woods to go out for a hike, these allow us to get by. And so an important question to ask is who has or who gets access to resources in society? So if we're thinking about social studies, a big question is who has access to these resources that make up society? And inevitably, it seems like that as human beings, we tend to fight over resources. So why does, and particularly around who has access to the resources. So why does this issue of who can access the resource cause conflict? So take a second to think of 3 examples how a person or a group or a company or a country can get into a fight over resources, either man-made or natural. So think of 3 ways that people might get into a fight over access to resources. All right, I hope you thought of at least a few examples. So just to throw some things out there, people might fight over access to education, who gets to go to school. In many countries, women aren't allowed to go to school, and it causes a big fight. Or people get in a fight about money. We all know that on our personal lives. Or people get into a fight about who gets to make use of the timber in the forest. Should it be privately owned by timber companies, or is it a natural resource open to all and the Forest Service manages it? Or people might get into fight about religion or spirituality, about who has the right to practice their own spirituality. So there's a lot of different ways that we get in fights about access to resources. So we don't want to address just the conflict itself. That part's easy. The conflict happens within ourselves or our family or in our nation or across the globe. You turn on the radio, you go home. It's easy to find the conflict. we really want to focus on how we resolve the conflict and what does that take at different levels for ourselves, for our family, our town, our state, our nation, and our world. So I've thrown out a few things here. Maybe it's like, oh, I need to be more patient and I'll get along with my kids better. Or maybe as a nation, we need to have more tolerance for people of different cultures, or our global level needs to have more tolerance. So you're going to pause the video here and you're going to take a moment to write down at least one thing that you think is needed at each level in order to actually resolve conflict. And you will post these things as an announcement or the post in your Google Classroom as we showed you in class. If you can't remember how to do that, you can look over the instruction sheet that was handed out. And if you don't have that, you can send me a text. So once you've done that, you can turn the video back on. But right now, just take a pause and write down one thing you think is needed at each level to resolve conflict, and go ahead and post it on Classroom. So just to recap, what are social studies? We looked at that social studies are society and looking at our power in society, or our status, our rank, our companionship, whether we have people in our lives that we share with and get along with. And it's not just companionship on an individual level, but also could be in a nation. How do we get along as a nation with other countries? And then this idea, if we have pleasure and happiness in our lives, and how do we create that and have that? And how do we get by in society? So how do we navigate these different parts of our life? And that comes from our resources. Resources could be natural, like the sunlight or water or gold. Those are all natural resources. Or they could be man-made, like our homes or our business or money or our education. Those are all man-made resources. And then we look at this idea that society tends to fight over resources and who gets to use them and why this happens. And then finally, we look at what are potential solutions for resolving conflict over resources. So this is really the framework for social studies that we'll be using in this class. So this course in particular is for college and career readiness at TECC, and we are going to look at all of these things having to do with social studies through the lens of the rural West in the United States. Like Taos, New Mexico is a rural Western town. And we're going to look at how access to our natural and man-made resources impact our rural society. And then how does the larger national and global society affect our small town West? We are going to address basic U.S. and world history, geography, and economics. And we'll look at the conflicts that arise and examine potential solutions. So we have some study tips. The course is what they call blended learning. And so part of it means that you watch these videos prior to coming to class. This saves us time in the classroom. We are a very condensed education, so we learn a lot in a short amount of time. And one of the ways we do that is that you show up to class already having watched these videos. And so that you don't have to waste your time listening to me in class yabber at you about all of these things. Instead, you can listen to me before showing up. And that will save us time in class to go places, to interview people, and to have a vibrant discussion, and to do a lot more hands-on learning. If you can't watch it on your phone, you can come in early or stay just a touch after class and use our computers. So you always want to have a notebook while you are watching these and listening, and take notes as you listen, and make your notes as wild as you can. Draw pictures, do stars, underline, bold, use different colors, doodle. This helps your brain remember them. So if you're both looking at the screen and listening to my voice and making wild notes, the chances that your brain will remember what you're learning are much higher. And then the third thing is really around vocabulary. Learn words that you don't know right away. Don't be lazy about this. You want to look them up right away and write down their definition, use them in a sentence out loud. Always taking the time to learn your vocab, even if it seems like it's slowing you down in the moment, like you don't finish the chapter, it's actually faster in the long run, because the faster your vocabulary expands, the more quickly you'll learn to read and get through material that will prepare you for a career and college. And then lastly is to really ask questions. You don't have to agree with our book. You don't have to agree with me or your classmates, but really think for yourself. It's called critical thinking. So you're thinking, I don't know about that. Or in my life, it was this way. Or what if we looked at it that way? Or I don't think it's taking that person's perspective into account. So you really want to develop the ability to not just memorize what we're telling you, but to really truly think for yourself. So this is my email, ninafelice@unm.edu. All of you will also have my cell phone number and can text me if you can't access the video, or you're stuck, or have any other comments about class. Please reach out to me at any time. All right, good luck and have fun.